Hello and welcome to United Latinas Cafecito. I'm Valerie Zolezzi-Wyndham and I'm so excited to be hosting today and to be here with my good friend, the amazing Dulce Orozco. Hi, Dulce.
Hi, Valerie. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It was wonderful to have breakfast with you last week and
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about wellness and what we'll talk about today.
Yes, and so much needed. Those meetings in person are irreplaceable.
They are, and I encourage, I think we talked about this when we met, right? We talked about the importance of finding community and making time for some joy and conversation.
Yeah.
And we encourage all of you to do that too.
Yes.
So we're here today to talk about why wellness is so important when there is chaos. And so we're going to dive into that topic, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your background and why this topic is important to you.
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Dulce Orozco. The name of my business is Latina Immigrant Therapist. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I am very passionate to work with um, people of color, immigrants, right? And I might be biased. I feel that it's always important to take care of us, but especially now, right? When you see so much chaos, like you said, everywhere you look around, and when it feels that the outside world is constantly throwing things at us and we cannot find that external safety, or at least it can feel that way, that's when it's even more important to really be mindful of how to build that internal safety, right? So you have something to hold on to.
Thank you. That's important. And so how do you yourself set yourself up to be able to do that in the chaos? Because it can be, when things are thrown at you, they can sort of the feeling that we have to react to those things or to manage those things can take over. And so how do you manage taking care of yourself in those moments, like in a really
Yeah,
concrete way?
in a really concrete way. Well, it's ongoing, right? Even though I do this for a living, I don't consider myself an expert when it comes to my own experience. We had a family lost in November, so I feel that these past few months have been very, very intense, and in a way, it feels that in my family we were already having a lot of uncertainty, and we were going and we are going through a grieving process. So I feel that adds a little bit personally. Something that I'm being very mindful of, and again, it's not that I have all the answers by any means, but I'm trying to be very mindful of how I'm reacting, right? What I'm putting out there, because I'm noticing, and this is without it's not coming from a judgmental space. I feel it's a part of being a human, right? And it's especially when we feel attacked, especially when we feel threatened. It's very easy to react um, aggressively, to react defensively, to react, in a way that says, I don't like this, I don't want this. And sometimes we don't even realize that what we're doing, right? Because it's so instinctively. Did I say that word right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you did.
I struggle with that word. So I'm trying, Valerie, to be very mindful of how am I reacting, and can I choose, right? Can I choose how to react? Because it doesn't help me to react with a level of aggression or hatred even, and I know that's a very strong word, but it's what I'm feeling sometimes. So And this is my personal experience, right? But I'm trying to be very, very mindful on my own reaction, because I feel that it's so easy for us to forget that no matter how hard we try, no matter how well we know someone, we cannot control their actions or their behavior. We're only able to control our own actions and behaviors, and that's challenging enough, right? So that's something that I've been trying to be so mindful. Like, okay, what is it that I want to say? How can I say it, right, in a way that that can be helpful to me and my internal processing at this time.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I I think we are seeing a lot of sadness and anger
Yes.
and hate, as you said, and also I think we are also seeing people try to share joy,
Yeah.
and then there can be a reaction also to the joy that you see people having, right?
Yes.
If you're in a place where you're having trouble finding it. And so I love that you're reminding us that all we can control is our own behavior, and I think your suggestion, right, that we pause and think about what we're going to say, and whether we're in the place right now to say what we really want, or whether maybe waiting would be better. And so how do you suggest people prepare themselves for showing up in the best way for themselves?
Yeah, I this can be there's so many variables, right? Because it depends on so many things, your personality, what you're going through, what type of day you had, did you sleep okay, did you have breakfast? But at the same time, I do feel that it's so important for us to remember that we have a choice, because it can feel, again, this chaos can make us feel, or the result, the impact of that chaos, external chaos, might be to feel extremely hopeless and helpless, which those are there's so many emotions, right, that we might be feeling at the same time. But sometimes the danger of feeling hopeless and helpless is to believe that there's nothing you can do about it, that you have no saying in the situation, right? Especially when we look at it systematically, it might feel that you're so small that no matter what you do, you're not going to make any changes. And I feel that really putting that on the forefront, remembering that you have a choice, can be the beginning of that, sense of agency. And another thing, Valerie, I do think that, and I know that not everyone might agree, and that's absolutely fine. You mentioned that there might be some judgment when we bring, or when we try to bring, some joy into everything that's going on, right? Some people might see it as being avoidant. Some people might see it as not acting up, or not collaborating, not putting your, but it seems to me that something that can be helpful is to try not to underestimate the small things. Right? Because it might be in the middle of everything, it might be too overwhelming, right? If I tell you, okay, I'm gonna start, I've been trying to exercise more, so I'm gonna go to the gym an hour and a half every day, Monday through Friday. That might be like too much at this time. It might be I might not have the capacity to do it. So how can we keep in mind, like, really don't underestimate the small things, while we also try to be more, think about it, about the, how to take care of ourselves with more spaciousness, right? So what if instead of seeing bringing up joy, what if instead of seeing that as something that might be, avoiding or denying what's going on, what if we see it as making space for more? What if we see it as this thing that I'm doing right now, like buying some watercolors because I really wanted to reconnect with that, is making space for creativity. And that's okay. It's not that I'm not actively doing something. If I'm more creative, I can be more compassionate. If I'm more compassionate, I can be more present for my family, my friends, my colleagues, right? So that's another thing. I feel that it's so easy for us to be very, I don't know, I don't even know what would be the right word, but to be very, like, to be very rigid about, like, this should look like this. But what if it can look differently, right?
Oh, I love that. What if it can look differently? And I really love that you said, what if there is room for more? There is room
Yeah.
for more. Yeah.
Something that I really try to use in my work is the metaphor of space, like how can we make more space? And sometimes in order for us to make more space, we need to take some things out, right?
Yes, no, that's right. And maybe an invitation that I am trying to take or accept, an invitation I'm trying to accept is to not be worried or responding to the chaos, because the chaos, responding to the chaos is my work. And so I have to watch the news, and I have to be prepared to help my clients navigate the news, but I don't have to do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
So part of the way that I am seeing being able to do more is by really thinking about how much time I'm spending, and
Yeah.
remembering that, I don't have to be watching all the time. I'll actually probably be better able to be present in all of the spaces if I'm also making more time to not be there, right? And so thinking about what you need, and what efforts you need to put in place, and then where you can stop doing some things to give you time to do some other things that you love.
Yes, and sometimes, I do thank you for bringing that up, because I feel that our rational mind understands that, right? And it's like, well, perhaps, scrolling down on Instagram for an hour is not what I need, what my body needs, right? But at the same time, it's hard to stop. So what can you do, right? Maybe like telling yourself, it's been too long, it's not working. So I know that it sounds simple, but actively, like, intentionally, that's another thing. I feel that right now we need a lot of intentionality. Like, we need to, being intentional, it's very helpful. But maybe leaving, like, physically leaving your phone in another room, and having that separation. And I know that it sounds so silly, but perhaps that's something that can be helpful, right? So it's easier not to spend so much time on a Sunday afternoon when you have your phone next to you or in your lap, than if you leave it upstairs, or if you leave it, but it's like, what steps do you need to get there? Keeping in mind that there might be that external pressure for you to know, right? So what if you give yourself a schedule to watch the news? What if you put a timer and say, okay, I'm going to watch the news every morning from, I don't know, like 9 to 9:15, and in the evening from 4 to 4:30, or whatever, because I don't want to be watching the news right before I go to sleep, right? At 10 something. And we know this, Valerie. The thing is, it's to put it in practice. That's the hard thing sometimes.
Yeah, all the time.
All the
For
time, yes.
me,
The majority of the
if,
time,
if
99% of the time.
yeah, if I'm being honest, it's hard, right? Or maybe there are places where we do it really well, and then there's other places in our lives, right, where we don't do it really well.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if someone were to tell you that they were really struggling with the chaos and wanted to take up a wellness practice, can you share a few suggestions of things that you think might, or maybe resources that people might go to look for where they could find some resources?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
how do you plan for the wellness,
So, going back to that part of being intentional, I do think that we're so good at, when it comes to our work, to be disciplined, or it's, for many of us, it's easier, right? Like, you understand that you need to reply to emails. You understand that in order for you to work with someone, well, most likely it's a process, because first you need to build trust. You need to do all these things, all these steps prior to working with someone as a client. However, when it comes to our own results, many of us, we want to see changes yesterday, right? So keeping in mind that it is a process, keeping in mind that it takes work. I feel that's an important part of this whole thing, right? And also looking at it as a phase. So it's easy for us, especially when we're feeling hopeless and helpless and sad and angry and all these things that we talked about, to be very black and white, with it. So sometimes if we look at it through the lens of it's always going to be like this, that adds to the heaviness of the situation, right? So what if we think of this as a phase, right? What if we try to remember it's not going to be like this forever, even though it might feel like that at times. Also, keeping in mind that maybe some of us, we have existing routines that we do, right? Maybe you have a morning routine. Maybe you might have already things in place that you have been trying to do. Maybe like take a walk in the, at noontime, or you have your exercising routine, or whatever it might be. But how can we right now, how can we be open to the fact that because of everything going on, it might not be working? Like everything, right? Sometimes you do things for whatever, your work, you have systems in the house that work for a little bit and then they stop working. They don't work anymore. So what if, can we bring, coming back to that spaciousness, can we be flexible? And perhaps, I for me, it works. Sometimes it works well to wake up early. So I wake up around 5, and then I feel like I have time for myself and time for, before the day starts. However, I realized that sleeping more have been more helpful. It's what my body seems to ask for that. So I'm trying to give that flexibility, right? And making changes, it's something that I would invite you to do. Again, with intentionality. Another thing is and we talked a little bit about this, but don't underestimate the power of small things. And try. So many of us, we're overachievers, right? So many of us. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to work on self-care. I'm gonna do a breath work, a 45 minutes breath work YouTube video. What if you do a 5-minute one and start there? And there's so many resources, free resources actually, right, that we can have access to. These might sound like the most, like, I don't know, like so simple, but setting reminders to breathe, like setting reminders, maybe 2 or 3 reminders a day in your cell phone, if you have Alexa, hey Google, whatever it might be, so you take the deepest breath you've taken all week long. So really, again, don't underestimate the power of those small things. Looking for community. And looking for community, I would add up, and I know this might sound perhaps a little harsh, but looking for the type of community that is helpful for you right now. If right now I know that I was talking about being very mindful about what I try to put out. If I love some friends right now, but they're in a completely different space, and seeing them for me right now, it's not what I need, or if they're being very reactive, can I give myself permission to look for a different support system? It's not that they're not my friends; they're still my friends. Just that now I'm gonna intentionally look for another support system for this part of my life that I need. So giving yourself permission to have that flexibility, right? Ask for help. That's one thing that I always try to remind people of. I feel that that's the one of the greatest acts of love, self-love, that we can do for ourselves. And that might look, for some people that might be going to therapy, for some other people that might be volunteering at some organization, for some other people that might be whatever it looks like for you. But I would really, really, really emphasize, whatever you're doing in this process, how can you, I always say that I have two partners in my work. One is love and curiosity, right? How can you be curious in a loving way? And the other one is self-compassion. So how can you be compassionate towards yourself? Because that amplifies, right? When
Mhm.
you're able to be compassionate towards yourself, it's easier to be compassionate towards others.
Thank you, Dulce. You shared such beautiful advice, and so I'm leaving the the reminder that micro moments are impactful,
Yes.
to have curiosity and self-compassion, and that self-compassion not only serves me but the people around me. And so thank you so much for spending a half an hour with us at United Latinas. I hope you have a beautiful day and a beautiful week, and that you are taking care of yourself while you're in mourning. And we appreciate that you spent some time with us today.
Thank you so much, Valerie. And my last reminder is,
Yes.
even though there's the name micro in that for the micro
Mm,
moments,
yes.
it takes, we still have to make them happen. Right?
No, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
That's
So
right.
that intentionality, right? But yes. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Dulce. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
And thank you to our listeners.